The only thing that I could feel that would make me feel good was either to get high, get drunk, or to put some type of chemical in my body so I wouldn't have to feel what I was feeling. I was probably at least 50 feet from the vehicle. I was screaming, I was crying, I was trying to get to the truck, I couldn't move. And I kept on yelling at the officer, I was cussing him out, I was just saying, just leave me alone, just, are they okay, are they okay? The only thing I heard is, I want to do everything I can to ensure that you're charged with DUI manslaughter. My name is Travis, and I grew up with two parents in the home, very stable family. And growing up as a kid, I used to play soccer. I was always good at soccer. When I got into high school, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to continue to play soccer. I wanted to get a scholarship, and I wanted to go off to college. Well, all that would change my freshman year. Me and a couple of friends of mine, we decided that we were going to go out one day. My other friend, he was speeding around the corner. I was kind of jumping up and down and trying to say that I'm parked over here. And as they were beginning to pull up, he hit the gas. And as he was speeding up, he decided that he wanted to just play around and play chicken, not meaning to what was about to happen. And I kind of jumped out of the way. And as I jumped out of the way, he still swerved and he hit me. The only thing that I could think of is I just wanted to get up and I just wanted to knock him out. And I remember as soon as I got up, I just heard this crack, and it was just, and all of a sudden my left leg just gave out. I remember I fell back down, I started to scream, I started to cry, and I woke up in the hospital. My dad was upset, my mom was crying. The doctor came in and said that they had to do immediate surgery, that they took x-rays, and that my growth plate in my left ankle was cracked perfectly in half. And if they didn't do immediate surgery, that I would have one leg shorter than the other. So I went into surgery that night. I had a plate and 7 screws put in my ankle. And after the surgery, the doctor came in and was kind of just telling us what the recovery process was looking like. He said that I'd never be able to run again. By the time I was 25, I would have severe arthritis in my left ankle. I remember hearing those words. It broke me. And I remember I was just like, how am I going to go to college? What am I going to do? I'm never going to be able to play sports again. I always identified myself playing soccer, and now it's taken away. So I started to hang out with some other friends that I knew about, and we weren't really close at that time just because I was always busy doing other things. And as I started to hang out with them, I noticed that they were doing drugs and alcohol, and they were partying a lot, and they weren't really into sports. And so I decided, you know what, maybe I can just start hanging out with them, and maybe, just still find some type of identity with some type of a crowd. So I started to hang out with them. I remember when I smoked weed for the first time, and then that led to drinking. One of the drugs that I started to use excessively was what the doctor prescribed me, was the painkillers. And I started to take them, mix it with alcohol, and I noticed the way it made me feel, and it made me feel good. And so I decided just to keep on using the painkillers as a means just to deal with the pain that was happening on the inside of me. So it led for me using the painkillers, for mixing it with alcohol, to crushing them up and also snorting them, sharing them with friends, and knowing that I could always go back to the doctor and just say my ankle still hurts and I could always get another prescription. The only thing that I could feel that would make me feel good was either to get high, get drunk, or to put some type of chemical in my body so I wouldn't have to feel what I was feeling. I tried acid for the first time. Just seeing different colors and just seeing different things, and it made you feel so good, and that you could stay up for hours feeling so good, and just laughing and just having a good time. So then from the acid, then I went to trying ecstasy. Ecstasy pills, they make you feel great. You can roll. We can go to some raves, and it's just a great time. With the ecstasy, it intensifies having sex and intensifies the touch. It just made you feel good again. So then from the ecstasy, then I went to cocaine. And then when I tried the cocaine, and this was the one drug to me that I would like out of all of them. and to where I could just sit there and I could go on my own time and I could just go ahead and just snort a line and just stay up and just be full of energy and just not having to deal with the pain of reality.
I remember looking in that mirror and seeing a girl that I didn't even know anymore. Is anyone ever gonna love me or be able to accept me and my baggage and my scars and my pain? Was anybody ever gonna be able to accept me? Because I can't even accept myself. My name is Kaylee Louder, and in March 2018, my life changed forever. I was a normal teenager, involved in sports, family activities, hanging out with my friends, going out, having a good time. I played competitive volleyball for about 4 years and traveled all over doing that. I loved hunting, fishing, doing normal things that teenagers do. And I had a whole future ahead of me. I had a whole plan in my head and of what I was gonna do with my life and how I thought it would be going. And within one night, that completely changed and my life flipped upside down. I was at dinner one night with some friends and I went to cross my legs and my leg was too heavy to pick up by itself, and so I used my hands to cross my legs. I thought it was kind of weird, but I didn't think anything of it. And so we finished dinner, I went home, and about 3 a.m. that night, I woke up screaming, and I was in the most excruciating pain of my entire life. I called for my parents, and my mom and my dad came running in, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I made my mom lay with me until the next morning, and she took me to the emergency room. And that's where my living hell began. After we were at the emergency room, they told us that I needed to have a procedure done that they weren't able to do there. So I was taken to the hospital where I live, and they did a lumbar puncture where they put a needle in your spine and take fluid out. They still didn't know what was wrong, and I stayed in that hospital for about 4 days, and no one could figure out what was wrong. I was sick to my stomach 24 hours a day, all day, every day, throwing up, in pain. No one could fix anything. No one could help me. After 4 days at United Regional, they came in and told my parents that we had to be moved because there was nothing else that they could do. At first, I saw it as something random, but something that would go away, something that wasn't going to last, and definitely not something that was going to change my life. But I was very wrong about that. I was immediately placed into the ICU, and I was told that I had severe heart damage. There was a lot of fluid around my heart. There was fluid in my lungs, and I couldn't breathe very well. I just couldn't breathe at all. Every deep breath was nothing, was not a deep breath. I felt like I could never catch my breath. Not only physically, but it was like emotionally. I couldn't get enough air. I couldn't get my head above the water. After 2 weeks, the doctor came in and told me and my family that there were rare diseases, very rare diseases, and extremely rare diseases. And I had an extremely rare disease known as Still's disease. It affects your heart, your lungs, your liver, your kidney, and in its most rare form, it can turn into MAS and HLH, which has a 60% mortality rate. And that's what happened to me. The pain was excruciating, and it would go from my fingertips to my shoulders to my shins to all over at the same time. And I knew when I first started to feel that little bit of pain that I was about to endure about 2 straight hours of misery. My brothers would come to visit me and be able to hear me screaming at the end of the hallway because the pain was so bad. I felt like someone had thrown gasoline on me and set fire to my body. I had ice packs on my shoulders, in between my legs, under my arms. Multiple times a day, specialists would come in, and before their mouth would open, I would know what they were going to tell me. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to fix it, and we don't know how to improve it. I've never been sick a day in my life, and now I have rheumatologists, hematologists, heart doctors, liver doctors in my room all day, every day, trying to figure out what's going on. How do you get through that?
So I continued to live my life, and then I was at my friend's house. Two best friends of mine, they wanted to go out and they wanted to go party. So I get in my truck, I drive, I pick them both up. We go out to the club, we're drinking, we're having a great time. And we left probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was going to drop off my one of the friends first. Got off on his exit, started to head towards his house, and all of a sudden, and I remember looking over and I thought I saw a vehicle, and I remember I swerved so we wouldn't collide with the other vehicle. And I remember at that moment my truck flipped, and as my truck flipped, I was ejected from the vehicle. And I remember looking up and I saw the bottom of the truck still running on its side. I was probably at least 50 feet from the vehicle. I was screaming, I was crying, I was trying to get to the truck, I couldn't move. And then as I laid there, an officer walked up to me and he asked me if I'd been drinking, and I said I had a couple of drinks, yes. And I kept on yelling at the officer. I was cussing him out. I was just saying, just leave me alone. Just, are they okay? Are they okay? The only thing I heard is, I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that you're charged with DUI manslaughter. I ended up waking up in the hospital. One of them, the one that did live, he was in the room already. My mom and my dad was there. I remember as I laid in the hospital bed and I woke up, I knew my life was totally out of control. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what even a future looked like. And I remember a friend looked at me and he just said, he's gone. I remember he ran up to me and we hugged, and he was gone. So I had a broken collarbone, 2 broken ribs. I was hospitalized for 7 days. And as I laid in the hospital bed for those 7 days, I remember that I knew I needed to change. So after I got out the hospital, I was arrested for 3 felony convictions: DUI manslaughter, vehicular homicide, and seriously bodily injury. I was looking at serving a total of 30 years. I bonded out after I was arrested, and I couldn't overcome knowing that my best friend was dead, and there was nothing I could do about it. And it was my fault. And I said, I have his blood on his blood on my hands, and I don't know what to do.
A typical day in that hell would be waking up, taking about 30 different types of pills, of which felt like were doing absolutely nothing for me. Being miserable, people I thought would be there for me not showing up, not reaching out, losing everything I'd ever known, losing faith, losing hope, and just not really wanting to live anymore. At points, I thought I would get through it, and at points I didn't want to. There was a lot of times I didn't want to. You get so miserable and You're living in between these four walls on a twin-size bed in excruciating pain every day, all day. And it gets exhausting. And it gets really hard. And I got to the point where nothing would help. Nothing would do anything for me but knock me out. And then it's a cycle. Miserable, wake up, eat, take medicine, go to sleep, over and over and over again. And I had no idea that was how I was going to be living for the next 6 months. I told my mom and my dad I didn't want to live anymore. There wasn't a reason. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to go through the pain all day, every day. And not just the pain, but the uncertainty, not knowing why, or if it would end, wanting it to end. Medicines can only do so much, and the medicines that typically did work for my diagnosis were not working for me. And every pain medicine did the same thing. It would work for a little bit, and then it would stop. And just like the medicine stopped, so did a lot of my relationships. People I thought would always be there for me were nowhere to be found. It's hard enough to go through something so physically traumatic, but to lose those closest to you, or that you thought were close to you, is a whole different type of pain. If losing my closest friends and my good health wasn't enough, I began losing my sanity as well. Depression took over, anxiety took over. I hated the way I looked. I gained weight. I had to get my mom to help me go to the bathroom, help me shower. I had no independence anymore. And I was lost. And I was confused.
As I continued to use the drugs and the alcohol so I wouldn't feel, I remember I started to get so angry. I remember my temper would get so short. I just started hating more. I just started hating. It seems like just one bad thing after another just kept on happening. I started to think that maybe the only way out was death. So then suicide thoughts would run through my mind. I remember I got a pocket knife. I put it in my pocket. I went to a place to where me and some of my friends, we used to party out near the railroad tracks. A good friend of mine that I grew up with, I called him. I said, look, I can't do this anymore. He's like, what are you talking about? I says, I can't do this. And I just hung up. As I was telling him this, my intention was as soon as I got off the phone that I was going to slit my throat. And I remember I was sitting near the railroad tracks. I was kind of just looking out and looking out into the sky. And I remember right in that moment to where I was going to talk myself into taking my life, I just heard someone start to scream my name. And it was the person that I called, the friend of mine that I called. And he came up and I just started to cry and I just said, I don't know what to do. So I continued to do the only thing that I knew what to do, was to continue to drink and to use drugs to suppress the feelings. I went out with a couple friends of mine. I've been drinking again. And as I was coming home, I was speeding and I was pulled over and I was arrested for DUI. So I ended up going into the county jail. I called my parents and my dad picked up. And I told my dad what happened and where I was at. And I could hear the anger and the frustration in his voice. What he said, just saying, are you ever going to learn? How could you do this again? You're never going to mount up to anything. I can't believe you just keep messing up, and that's all it seems like you keep doing is you're always going to be a mess up. And he was just so angry, and I remember I just hung up the phone. I knew that it was over. So after I got off the phone with my dad, I started to really realize that I'm 22, in jail, and knowing that I don't know what type of future that I'm even gonna, if I even have a future. So I took a plea for the second DUI for 11 months probation. I was released, and then 2 days later, I had a court date to go in front of the judge. I went in front of the judge. I was arrested. We went to trial to plead not guilty, and the jury came back and said they found me guilty for one of the three felonies that I was charged with, which was DUI manslaughter. And then I was sentenced to 11 years prison, 4 years probation, license revoked for the rest of my life. Immediately I started to think that the only thing that I would ever be known for was killing my best friend and for being a convicted felon.
My mom was helping me shower one day. And that was the first day that I noticed my scars. I remember looking in that mirror and seeing a girl that I didn't even know anymore. I remember my mom brushing my hair and clumps of my hair starting to fall out. I'd never felt so low, and I'd never wanted to give up so bad in my life. Do I have any worth anymore? Is anyone ever going to love me or be able to accept me and my baggage and my scars and my pain? Is anybody ever going to be able to accept me? Because I can't even accept myself. What do you do when all you've ever known is gone? After 6 months of being in the hospital, I lost my friends, my ability to walk, my sanity, and now I have scars that will never go away. And I even lost my hair. And all of my hope.
So as I was incarcerated, I started to pick up the Bible just to burn time. There was nothing really to do, so I needed something to kind of burn time, and I've never picked up the Bible before. I couldn't find another book at that time. It was just the Bible was the closest thing, so I picked it up and I started to read. I noticed that I started to feel a peace, and I've never felt this peace before. So I kept on reading, and I noticed that the more that I kept on reading the Bible, the more peace that I felt. So I decided to go to chapel services. I went, and it was great. And I was sitting in the back, and the minister, he was preaching, and towards the end of his message, he gave an altar call, and he just said, anybody here would like to make Jesus Christ their personal Lord and Savior and to repent of their sins, to please come forward. I remember I put my head down, and I couldn't believe what was taking place. And then all of a sudden, I just felt like God was telling me that this is your last chance. I remember right in that moment that I said, Jesus, I'm sorry for everything that I've done. I'm a sinner in need of a Savior. I need you in my life. I knew right then, I just felt the weight leave. The depression left, the anxiety left. And all of a sudden, I just got so excited about life again. So joyful. I was sentenced to 11 years prison. And through my incarceration time, I was able to preach the gospel. I was able to witness. I was able to share with others the hope that you can have in Jesus no matter how bad your life is, no matter how bad life gets, no matter how many bad decisions we make, that if we just give our lives to Him, that He can take the mess and He can make something great. From 2002 to 2012, I was in prison. I was released April of 2012, and I was going to start my life fresh, new, not the same person that I was when I went in. I never thought I was going to be a father. I never thought I was going to be a husband. I never thought I was going to be able to be a great provider. And here I am today, changed, set free, have a beautiful wife, a beautiful son who's 2 years old, and have another one on the way. And just, it's amazing to know that because of one decision of making Jesus Christ my personal Lord and Savior, He came in and He led me out of my darkness and my brokenness. It gave me something so beautiful.
When I was 7 years old, I gave my life to Christ. Even though I felt like I had no hope, the foundation and the relationship that I had started with the Lord is what gave me something to cling on to. I still struggle. I'm still fighting. I have an incurable disease. Life's not always easy. I still have days where I have anxiety and depression. I believe that I'm alive because God saved me. He never gave up on me, and I'm never giving up on Him. He was always there. I didn't always feel like it, and I definitely didn't always believe it, but He was there, and He never left.